From this moment on, you will now be known as Sharkbait.
Sharkbait, ooh-ha-ha!
Welcome, brother Sharkbait.
Sharkbait, ooh-ha-ha!
Enough of the Sharkbait.
Sharkbait, ooh! Well,
Hey, what's up everybody? This is D, bringing you the next part in our series on dosing elements, and the topic of today's discussion is on additional elements such as strontium and iodine and things that we cannot so quickly test for. Now, there are many essential elements that make up natural seawater in nature, many of which we have not yet developed the means to test for. And these elements are constantly dosed into our tanks through the method of water changes, through the mixture of the salt and all of those elements that make up what we call salt water. Now, things such as iodine, we've done several studies on as to how invertebrates and coral use iodine to build up their colors and structure, and even these are essential parts of human metabolism. But the topic of today's little video is the fact that we often dose these things without being able to determine A, how much we actually need, or B, whether we need it at all. Now, I think it's very interesting because I myself have tested many of these elements, and looking over the instructions of many of them, you'll notice that they often have sections for regular dosing, and you'll also actually see advanced, or what some of these bottles will say, instructions for expert aquarists. Now, the funny thing about that is I don't believe in the description of anybody as far as being an expert, because when you use the term expert, that means that you have dedicated both education, experimentation, and years of hands-on application to determine what reaction or non-reaction you have when you're dosing specific elements. And I know that sounds kind of confusing, but from the way I see it, no one is an expert. Even experts make mistakes. Experts are always learning, and this is why we call science science, because it is constantly using what you know to generate a regular or consistent result. So let's look at the tank as we kind of go into this, and I'm not going to make this a long video. It's just got a very defined point to it all. So here's a coral. This is a frog spawn. Now, many people buy frog spawns based on coloration or size or even just the polyp extension, and you'll put the same coral in 3 different tanks and you may end up with 3 different results. Sometimes it looks more green due to lighting or due to water parameters, or you may even say that it's due to the chemical additives or lack of additives in the water. You know, this is why people dose essential elements, because they're looking for coloration or they're looking for a specific rate of growth. You may even say that it's iodine. Sometimes iodine is a very, very tricky thing to deal with, because overdose of iodine can be a detrimental impact on the aquarium. But let's say you want your corals to look more vibrant or grow faster. This is why we dose essential elements. Now, this is a sea urchin. A sea urchin, like any other invertebrate, doesn't have the same metabolism or actually digestive or processing system that you would see in fish, crabs, or snails. But it does at the same time utilize the elements in the water such as iron, iodine, calcium to build its skeletal structure and things of that nature. But once again, how do we measure how much goes into the tank? That is a very, 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 very tricky state of affairs, because if you ask 10 different people, you'll probably get 10 different answers. So I will tell you how I go about dosing my aquarium based on the animals in this specific system. First and foremost, read the directions, because while you know for a fact you're not testing for it, you have to know that it is easy to overdose because the fact that you do not know how much is currently in your system. Now, there's no method available to the basic aquarists to test for, well, we do have iodine tests, but to test for things like strontium or what we call zinc and other essential elements. So if you look at this bottle, you'll see that it is based on a regular dosing. Try to bring you some light here. Regular dosing instructions are done every 1 to 2 weeks. So this is based on changing the water and adding this when you change the water. So when you change the water, before you add it to the tank, you could do one of two things. You could add your mixture to the tank or add your mixture to the water change water. Now you might say, well, still, I don't know whether I need it or not. Yes, the point that I'm getting to is the fact of the matter is many people run reef tanks and saltwater tanks that don't have coral without dosing any essential elements. This is just something that is left up to the user to once they know how their tank reacts with regular water changes, to understand the balance of what is needed by the tank and what isn't needed by the tank. So what I'm saying in short is, it's up to your own eye. You don't know whether you need it or not. And in my opinion, usually you don't need it. You can do most of these things, raise most of these animals with water changes and basic 2-part, or some people just run calcium reactors. But we get caught up in a lot of the science, or not even the science, just the overrun with products on the market. So these are very good products, don't get me wrong, but we blame our misfortunes, our mistakes on the chemical instead of our usage of the chemical. So what I want to say is all of these things are beautiful. And just to give that shout out to Kent Marine. Kent Marine makes excellent products. I use them in my system here. I do notice changes, but you have to be very, very careful and stick to the directions when you're using these elements, because you do not have a way of measuring them other than looking at your tank and looking at the response from the corals in the tank. Now, when I added this coral here, this fovea was almost very, very, very green, dark green, and it's hard to tell by the camera, but with the naked eye, it's become like a fluorescent green. And I haven't changed the lighting in the tanks, but I have been dosing this strontium and molybdenum additive to the water, because the friend that gave this coral to me says, oh yeah, I've been dosing it with the strontium additive, and I have noticed a change in the coloration of this coral, and actually I've noticed the growth in another coral. Now, if you've been watching my videos, which most of you have, which is why you're here today, this pavona was a little piece the size of a fingernail about 2 weeks ago. And if you look at the frag plug, which is an old dead Euphyllia coral skeleton, you'll notice that compared to the way it was 2 videos ago, it's almost half, it's more than half the size of the frag piece that it's on. It's taken up that whole half, and now there's only a little bit left. So within the last 2 weeks, the growth and coloration of this coral has skyrocketed, and even the encrusting of the pavona encrustment over here is expanded by leaps and bounds. So I can attribute that to the change in the dosing of the strontium and combo Kent Marine supplement, because I have not dosed anything else to the tank other than that. So the lesson to be learned here is you have to watch your tank. Don't just go out and buy chemicals, especially if you're not testing for them. Watch your tank, dose in small portions, and look for reactions. Some corals may have a negative reaction. So you want to pay very close attention to those chemicals to which you are not testing. And I'm going to say this once again because some people are adding alkalinity and calcium and they're not even testing for that. They're just dosing it because they're called 2-part, so they're dosing it in 2 parts. If you're not testing your tank, do start testing or add in very small amounts and space them out. Never add multiple chemicals at the same time. Dose them in small amounts and take your time. That's a short, quick blowout for today. I'm going to cut it short. If you're not already a subscriber, click subscribe. I want you guys to do good. It's not all about the big terminology, but about the simple things and about looking at changes and taking your time and having patience. If you don't have patience, believe me, you're in the wrong hobby. So with that being said, this is D. I'm out. Love, peace, and hair grease. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.